It's the first Tuesday of October, and we have our next set of patch notes to kick off the month. What is going on, ProGuides family? It is your host, Sergeant Frost, and today we have the patch 3.07 notes for you guys. There aren't a ton of changes in these patch notes, but some of these changes are quite interesting and could need a bit of explaining. And before we jump in, you guys know that if you want to get ahead of the competition in-game as well, we have Radiant and Immortal level coaches on ProGuides.com who are trained to help you improve at any level. Coaching can help everyone, so whether you're a beginner or a seasoned veteran, we've got something to help you succeed. All you gotta do is click on the link in the description, and now let's head right into the patch breakdown. Let's start off with the agent changes. VIPER is getting some light changes in this patch that mostly deal with her wall and her poison's visual effects. With that being said, for the first change, passing through the highest portion of VIPER's wall now correctly applies instant decay to high-flying agents, Cough Cough, Jett, and Raze. Also, the devs have updated the visuals for the dissolving effect seen while inside VIPER's smoke to better match the visuals seen from the outside. This is an attempt to remove any type of peeker's advantage when playing from within the smoke. The first change to the top half of VIPER's wall is mainly meant to make sure that the decay effect correctly applies to agents that have the ability of flight. Mainly Raze and Jett are affected here, because previously they had the ability to clear VIPER's wall when jumping, and this would allow them to get around the decay effects that would come if they barely touched her wall. Honestly, this isn't too big of a change, but it does affect Raze and Jett players that might have been abusing this. Either way, it's good to know that there's no sneaky exploits to be had in your ranked games. The second change is meant to deal with VIPER's peeker's advantage surrounding her wall and her smokes. They are mainly to fix visual effects bugs and remove peeker's advantage that can be abused when peeking through VIPER's wall and her various smokes. VIPER is notorious for getting insane peeker's advantage when she decides to swing out of her smokes or through her wall, and the dev changes in this patch are looking to curtail that advantage. Previously, VIPER mains who were adept at playing in and around her smokes knew how to abuse this mechanic. In the past, VIPER used to be able to fast swing out of her smoke or ult and see the enemy before they could see her, and this was mainly due to how VIPER's visual effects worked with her smokes. Now, this is no longer the case, and VIPER and her enemies will now be able to see each other at the same time, now that this new change has been implemented. This is a small nerf to VIPER mains who knew how to abuse this mechanic, but it's nothing too major. For anyone not playing VIPER, now you have the peace of mind to hold that VIPER smoke knowing that when it comes down, you aren't at a disadvantage. Now, as we move on to Jett, this change is just a nice quality of life change for Jetts that want to practice her knives in the training range. Jett's Blade Storm kunais will now recharge after killing training dummies or defuse practice bots in the practice range. Now that they have changed this, Jett players can now adequately train with Jett knives to the best of their ability. Jett players often go into the range specifically to train different scenarios with her knives, so it is nice that she is now able to practice to the fullest extent with her knives. Like I said, this is a nice quality of life change that should make practicing with Jett a little bit easier, especially since Jett nerfs to her right click have made it much more valuable to practice her precision. For the social updates in this patch, the penalties have been removed for leaving death matches early now. Instead, you need to have full game participation until the end of the match in order to gain XP. This is a revert on the previous change where Riot added a penalty to dodging death matches earlier in the year. Riot noticed that adding dodge penalties to death matches were a little too harsh, so they decided to ease up on the sentencing of players with this revert change. It's nothing huge for people who didn't dodge death matches already, but it is nice to know. For the performance updates of this patch, we're getting to test a cool new beta feature called Raw Input Buffer. Let's take a closer look at what this does and what the devs are hoping it will accomplish. So, on a very simple level, Raw Input Buffer improves performance of the input device processing. Valorant has been using raw input for usable devices such as keyboard and mouse since the game's launch. Now, if you enable the Raw Input Buffer feature, it will adjust the APIs that are used for processing with the raw input in-game. This new feature should create minor performance improvements and identical to normal input latency when used with standard input devices, and gaming mice especially. Most of the major performance improvements you will see will be noticeable when you are using gaming mice with a polling rate of 8000 Hz and higher. And with that being said, 8000 Hz polling rate mice are now supported when this feature is enabled. This change is huge for the cracked gamers out there. In the simplest of terms, players with nice gaming mice and higher polling rates will now be able to take advantage of the full extent of their aim with this new feature enabled. Before this feature was introduced, players with the high polling rate mice did not see the full effect of the high polling rate because the game had a hard time processing it, so its positive effects were negated. Now that this new feature is being introduced, the top-end gaming mice will now be able to be used to their fullest extent with this change. For game system updates, there are a lot of new fixes for players who are reporting crashes on a wide scale. I really hope that this fixes my crashing issues, because in the past week, Valorant has been unstable and my game client has crashed out of several matches that I was playing in, so my fingers are crossed for this change. Lastly, for bug fixes, the devs have fixed a bug where the text cursor would relocate to the right when editing the text in a report a player menu. And lastly, for game system bugs, the devs have fixed a bug where the team ace could be awarded in scenarios where it wasn't earned by the team. Well guys, that's all we have for the patch 3.07 rundown. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to drop a like and consider subscribing to the channel. We upload new videos just like this one every single day, and the best way to stay notified of that is by ringing that notification bell. Also, don't forget to check out ProGuides.com for the very best on-demand coaching. This has been your host, Sergeant Frost, and I will see you all again in the next one.